Selling is a big part of being in business, and generally when we think of selling, we think of stuff, products and retail. But we also need to sell if we're in a service-based industry, which sometimes feels a little harder for not being a tangible thing that people can see and hold and want. Catherine Watkin has a degree in psychology and a black belt in sales. She is from Selling from the Heart, and she's a sales and marketing coach and joins us today to show us how you can sell your services without having to sell your soul. Welcome to Taking Care of Business, Catherine.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And it's lovely that you're here all the way from the UK and you've made some time to come in, having some international guests on Taking Care of Business. So you've been in the sales and marketing coach arena for a while. What are the biggest inhibitors people have to selling that you've found?
Well, my business name, as you said, is Selling from the Heart, and I very much focus on what I call heart-centered business owners. And these are people who've gone into business mainly because they really feel called to make a difference to other people. And for that particular group of people, a lot of what inhibits them around sales is they have a real fear of being perceived as pushy. They've gone into business because they want to help people. Yes, they want to create a viable business from that. But the last thing they want is for somebody to think that they're just after their money, or that actually they care more about getting the sale than they do about helping them. And that whole fear of coming across as pushy holds them back in sales so much that I've even frequently known clients of mine to avoid sales situations altogether because they're so nervous about not knowing how to navigate sales without doing it in a sort of pushy, uncomfortable way.
That's it. We forget that every business has sales involved in it. It's not just stuff. We think, sales and retail, but we got to sell everything, don't we? So what have you seen are the biggest mistakes when it comes to selling?
Well, I guess one is connected to what you've just said, and it's the idea that I think that very often small business owners who've gone into business to make a difference to others, they tend to have this feeling that there's something inherently wrong with sales and needing to take someone through a sales process. And hey, I do good work. I'm a good person. People should just find me. Yeah. People should just know that I can help them. And they don't realise that actually it's if they want to create a business from this, it's their responsibility to communicate to the client how they can help and the value that their service offers, rather than expecting the client to just know that, because the customer doesn't, especially when the product is something quite intangible, or it's a healing or helping service like coaching or consulting or therapy or hypnotherapy or something. The potential customer doesn't always fully understand the transformation that is available, and it's up to that business owner to communicate. And shying away from that is one of the big mistakes I see.
Absolutely. And I guess that's part of sales, is communicating your product effectively, isn't it?
It is. And this is one of the things I talk about a lot. You don't have to be pushy or sleazy. And in fact, what I often say is if you ever fall into the position of needing to try and convince someone or push them into working with you or persuade them, you haven't done a very good job of communicating in the first place. Because if you can learn to communicate and articulate what you do very clearly, you don't need to work so hard to persuade, because the customer can make their own. You give the customer enough information, you can trust that they have the ability to make their own decisions. And if you've communicated it clearly enough and you've made it sound compelling enough, there's a good chance they're going to decide, yes, I want to do this. And then there's no pushing required.
So how do you learn to do that part of it, the communicating properly?
Well, this is a big part of the work that I focus on within the programs that I run. And it starts from getting very clear on who is the ideal client that you're here to serve. So if I take, for example, I'm going to take a hypnotherapist as an example. Any hypnotherapist will tell you, I've been really well trained, I can help anybody, and I can help them with anything. I can help them with anxiety and weight loss and depression and all of this stuff. I can help children, I can help old people, I can help mums, I can help stressed out workers. But actually, it's when you narrow that down to just one particular person or type of person that you can really dig into what's the problem this one particular type of person is suffering from, and how can I provide a solution to that. So it's very, very difficult to sell hypnotherapy. It's very, very difficult to sell coaching. But actually, it's not so difficult to sell I help busy mums lose their baby fat after they've had their first child, after they've had their first child. It's very specific and it's very targeted, and this helps the communication, because if you're not communicating to just one person, you're trying to communicate to everybody. And as soon as you're trying to communicate to everybody, your message becomes very diluted and very bland, and you end up saying, I can help everybody with everything, and nobody takes any notice. And that's the problem that most people are struggling with.
So you can either talk about, I can help X amount of people, or are you having problems? Focus on your customer.
Yeah, you focus on that one ideal. I call it the ideal client. Some people call it the avatar. It's about, so my own avatar or ideal client in my business is one lady. Her name is Linda. She's an EFT practitioner. She lives outside of Cambridge in the UK. She's a real live person. She's someone who's done a lot of work and been through my programs. So when I'm creating sort of my sales and marketing messages, I'm thinking about Linda. But then other people will hear that message and respond to that message. And it's the same in the sales conversation. It's about listening in to the problem that the person you're talking to tells you they have, and then demonstrating and answering that you can help them with that particular problem. So if the person has come to you because they're stressed and maybe they're not spending enough time with their family and they're worried that their relationship is on the rocks because they're working all the time and they want you to help them to get more of a balanced life, there's no point you starting to talk to them about all the people you've helped to give up smoking, or about the person who you helped get a career promotion last year, because they want to know that you can solve their problem. And this is a really key part of it. It's being able to communicate directly. You've got something that you're struggling with, and I have a direct solution to that particular problem.
Does this work when you've got sales campaigns as well? If you have a sales campaign, should you target that one specific avatar rather than tell everyone everything you do, or have that maybe as a byline somewhere, but targeting that one person, that one service that you do as the main concept behind a sales campaign?
Yes, this is why, and this is what's so painful. I see so many small business owners. They're exhausted, they're burning themselves out, they're marketing like crazy, they're on social media, they're going out networking, they are they are just burning themselves into the ground and have no clients to show for it. And it's because although they're doing all that work and they're broadcasting a lot of information out, nobody's taking the slightest bit of notice of it, because anyone can read it and think, yeah, I sort of know what you do. But what you need is for somebody to read your sales material or your marketing material and go, oh my gosh, you're talking about me. And when they get that feeling, oh my gosh, you're talking about me, that's when they have this pull. They want to find out more. They want to click through and read more what you've written on your sales page. They want to book in for that consultation to find out how you can help. But you have to get either that, oh my gosh, you're talking about me, or the next best thing would be, oh, wow, you're talking about my sister. I need to tell her about you. But there needs to be that recognition. And when you try and talk to be all things to all people, what happens is everyone just goes, oh, that's nice. And nobody connects to it emotionally and nobody responds.
It's that light bulb moment. Is that how you also stop yourself going into you can't help yourself sometimes. You can feel yourself going into that sales spin. How do you stop that?
Yeah, and it's a great point, because this is the thing about the persuading, that if somebody's in a sales conversation with somebody and they can sense that it's not landing for the other person. So what happens a lot with the types of people I work with is they know that they have these real gifts and talents and ability to help people in a really profound way. And they might have a client in front of them or on the phone, and they just they're almost jumping out of their chair with excitement because it's like, oh my gosh, I can so help you. But they don't know how to actually put that into words and communicate that so it lands with that potential client. So the more they talk, the more they can sense that person's drifting off. And so the more they talk. And so the next thing you know is this person who didn't want to be pushy at all is going, oh yeah, but I can help you with, and trying harder and harder and harder. And the potential customer is just pulling away because it's starting to feel pushy. So learning how to communicate the value of what you do is such, it's almost, it's the core thing people need to start doing, learning how to communicate that value, because when you can communicate it clearly, the person will hear you and think, yeah, I'm interested, I want to know more. And you don't have to keep talking, because now they're going to start asking you questions. Oh, and how does that work? And how many sessions is it? And what's that going to cost me? Because they're interested.
Is that what you do if you find yourself going into that spin? Whoa, please, more. Is that how you stop yourself? Do you ask them a question?
You could definitely pause and just sort of take a breath and just say, how does that sound? The other thing that I suggest my clients do, because I'm all about authentic sales, is that at the point when you catch yourself getting into that almost salesy tailspin and you're like, oh my gosh, I can hear myself being pushy and I really don't want to, is just stop. And if you feel you're being pushy, chances are the customer is feeling it too. And you just say, I am really sorry. I feel like I'm talking at you. I feel like I'm almost coming across as a bit pushy. I really don't mean to. I'm just so passionate about what I do. And so it's about stopping and pausing and acknowledging and just getting you back on the same page almost, because you want the customer to stop pulling away. And the potential client or customer is going to think, oh, phew, that's a relief. Great, she's caught herself, she's acknowledged it, she's put this on the table, now we can keep talking.
I guess that's also a way of building up a rapport with someone. I'm sorry, I'm so passionate. And people always like to see other people's, faults as well.
Yeah, and the humanity in it. And, I'm not just here to sell to you, I just can't help getting carried away.
Now, we've talked about selling from the heart and being authentic compared to, cutthroat snake oil salesman. Do you have to be cutthroat and full of spin to do well in business, or can you do just as well by being authentic?
You can do just as well by being authentic. I would actually say you can probably do better. I think one thing that is very common amongst those people who use what I call maybe more heavy-handed or aggressive sales techniques is that they are very good at getting what they would call the close actually on the call or in the sales conversation itself. But the person who says yes might not necessarily be fully emotionally on board with it. They're almost saying yes because they've been backed into a corner, they've been bullied into it, or maybe the person's very skillful and they've used some really good psychological techniques and the person has said yes. But when they're not really emotionally on board with it themselves, they're very likely to wake up the next morning and think, oh my gosh, what have I just done? And want to go back and cancel or change.
How many times have we all done
that? Yeah. Whereas when you can get the client to come to their own decision and say yes to buying from you because they feel emotionally connected to that decision, and you can have them leaving that conversation feeling very committed and actually feeling very excited about their decision. And within my programs, I teach people how to end the call in that way so that the customer's leaving feeling excited, feeling committed. They're much, much less likely to wake up the next day and think, what did I just do? I let someone talk me into something I didn't want.
We have all done that and we've all regretted those things. And I guess the lesson that we need to learn is that we don't often go back to buy from those people.
We don't. And the other thing is we don't refer our friends to those people. And so not being pushy is so good for business, because if somebody doesn't buy from you, but you've given them a very positive experience, and something that I've talked about a lot is how the sales conversation should be a healing experience in its own right. So if somebody's working as a healer or a coach, not thinking, oh, I'm going to have some sleazy sales conversation and then I'm going to start healing the person afterwards. It's like, no, that potential customer should leave that conversation feeling like it was a nurturing, healing, positive experience in its own right, irrespective of whether they say yes to working with you or not. Because if you do that, one of two things will happen. The first thing is that as soon as they do feel ready for that work, guess where they'll be? They'll be straight back to you because they know they can trust you, that you're going to look after them and you're not going to push them into anything. The second thing is they're going to refer their friends because they know that you're not going to be being pushy and making them feel uncomfortable. And it can be very common if you're good at having these sales conversations on those occasions when the customer doesn't decide to go ahead. That can turn out to have been the best sales conversation ever because it leads to multiple referrals over a period of time, much more than that one on its own would have been worth if you'd pushed the person into it.
Absolutely. I know what it's like when I've had great sales conversations with people, they've been selling to me, and I often feel very hopeful about they'll be able to fix whatever it is that my problem is this week, or whatever it is I need, or that's going to fill that gap. It's that hopeful feeling that I really enjoy feeling. And talking about referrals, and repeat business, that's how you do get a lot of your sales, isn't it? It's not by finding new clients, it's by referrals and repeat business. So you do want to nurture that relationship with those clients that are interested in you in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really big piece. So I don't run this anymore, but I used to run a 12-month sort of high-end mentoring program for small business owners. And, a large part of that is around how they're marketing and attracting their clients. And when people start in business at first, there is a lot of sort of grunt work. I call it the hard yards to get out there and get those first clients in. There's a lot of marketing, there's networking, going out, giving talks, doing your online marketing. And it's a lot of work. It's very weighted towards the marketing side. And a year ago, I interviewed some of those previous clients. I wanted some case studies, so I did some videos with them and some interviews. And quite a number of them said to me, the most amazing thing about having a business that's working is I hardly do any marketing at all because it's all word of mouth referrals now. So once they built up to a certain point, they could let go of a lot of that really hard work they'd done in the first 2 years because now the referrals, imagine if every person who came to you referred 2 people and those 2 referred 2 more and those 2 referred 2 more. That's all it takes, and suddenly you're not having to market anything like as hard as you used to. So it gets easier as you go along in business.
Have hope, everyone.
Yes.
Have hope. Thank you so much for joining us, Catherine Watkin. Just wonderful. We're all inspired by your sales pitch on how to do a sales pitch without feeling like we're selling our soul. Your business is selling from the heart. And if you're interested in finding out more about Catherine, then check that out. Taking Care of Business. We'll be back next week.